Good morning, class. Welcome to today's practical demonstration. We will be looking at Prac number 2, determination of concentration using a standard curve. So before you watch this video any further, make sure that you have read this Prac very carefully. Also make sure that you read the appendices. So here we have Appendix 1, which will take you through prefixes, amounts, concentration, molarity, and weight per volume, volume per volume. Most of that we've already covered in the lectures, but it's always good to revise. Percent solutions, ratios, and dilution factors. And of course, very importantly, have a good read of Appendix 2, which will introduce you to the concept of spectrophotometry using a machine called a spectrophotometer. All right, so let's follow along with this demonstration. We've got Bob here today, who is assisting me. So Bob will be our student demonstrator, and we're going to set up 8 test tubes as outlined in this table. So test tubes 1 to 6 will include our standard solutions of known volume, and test tubes number 7 and 8 are duplicates of our solution of unknown concentration. Okay, so here's all the volumes that will be placed into those test tubes, and we're going to follow the method as outlined in your Prac book. So I'd like you to follow along, and the first thing we're going to do is to prepare the solutions in test tubes as per step number 1 in your methods. So let's look at what we've got set up here. Here's the solutions that we'll be using. Here's our 4% phenolphthalein solution. Here's our phenolphthalein of unknown concentration. That's your job, or rather Bob's job, to work out what the concentration is. And here's our glycine buffer, which will be added to all the test tubes. All right, Bob.
Now I've transferred those into those.
Okay, yes, thank you, Bob. We have transferred a small volume of each of these 3 solutions into small beakers, small labelled beakers, as you can see there. Okay, and we've got our water in a beaker there. All right, we also have set up for you 8 labelled test tubes from 1 to 8. And we will be using auto pipettes, as you can see here, and we've set up our waste container there. All right, Bob. Bob's going to show us his pipetting skills. Thank you, Bob.
So we start off firstly with the standard phenolphthalein solution, our 4% standard phenolphthalein solution. Test tube number 1 doesn't actually involve or doesn't have any 4% solution of our phenolphthalein, but test tube number 2 has 0.5 of a milliliter, also known as 500 microliters. I set our auto pipette to 500 microliters. So that's 500 microliters there.
Yep.
Take the tip from the tip box and transfer 0.5 ml or 500 microliters of 4% standard phenolphthalein solution to test tube number 2. There's your 0.5 ml, test tube number 2. Now I can still use the same tip because I haven't actually cross-contaminated with it, and what I'll do is now transfer 1 ml of standard phenolphthalein solution to test tube number 3. Test tube number 4 is 1.5 mils. And so what I'll do is I'll actually crank it back down to half a mil and add 3 times half a mil in test tube number 4. Does that make sense? Yep.
Yep.
So 1, test tube number 4, remember, 1, 2, 3. Test tube number 5 has 2 mils. So I need to add 4 times a 500 mil or 500 microliter aliquot. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's to test tube number 5. And what we do is now we repeat this for test tube number 6, and then we add our unknown phenolphthalein solutions of 2.5 milliliters volumes to test tube number 7 and 8. Then we add 2.5 milliliters of glycine buffer to each test tube in order to give us this colour change from a clear solution to a pink solution, because phenolphthalein is actually a pH indicator. It gives us a pink solution, and then we actually increase the volume in order to make sure that the volume is all consistent. We actually add 2.5 milliliters of water to test tube number 1, 2 mils to test tube number 2, 1.5 mils to test tube number 3, 1 milliliter to test tube number 4, and 0.5 of a milliliter or 500 microliters to test tube number 5. And then after we've set up these number of test tubes, we will then transfer these volumes into cuvettes, and then we measure the absorbance using a spectrophotometer.
Thank you very much, Bob. I'll leave you to your pipetting of the rest of the solutions into the test tubes, and we'll come back with you shortly.
Thank you.